AfriForum to use EFF funds to fight land issue. AfriForum has vowed that it will use legal funds it obtained from EFF leader Julius Malema and his party to continue their legal battle to stop the expropriation of land without compensation. Kallie Kriel, AfriForum chief executive, made the remarks yesterday, when he announced that the EFF and Malema have until Friday to pay his organization R109,098 for an outstanding costs order. Should the money not be paid by then, AfriForum will start a process again to seize the EFF's assets. This money pertains to the order as to costs which AfriForum obtained against the EFF and Malema on November 14, 2018, after the EFF and Malema's attempt to obtain an urgent court order to prevent AfriForum from removing the EFF's property and auctioning it off, failed. This legal bill has since been taxed and therefore AfriForum can now enforce the payment thereof, Kriel said. He said the costs which AfriForum obtained in November were one of 5 orders that his organization had obtained against Malema and the EFF to date. He said of the cost orders, Malema and the EFF had paid 2, amounting to R235,000. With the payment of this enforceable third order, 2 more orders will be outstanding. The enforcement of last mentioned is being held back because one must still be taxed and the EFF appealed against another one. It's estimated that the total of the 5 orders amounts to about R550,000. We will fight Malema and the EFF with their own money. He said the 5 cost orders stemmed from a court battle since March 2017, when AfriForum was granted an interdict with costs which prohibited the EFF from inciting people to illegally occupy or trespass on land. The North Goa High Court granted AfriForum's interdict with costs. Malema and the EFF then brought an application to have the interdict set aside, which would have been heard on September 12, 2017. However, the court had to postpone the case after Malema and the EFF submitted their heads of argument in their own case too late. The judge subsequently granted a punitive cost order against Malema and the EFF. When the case resumed on February 18, 2018, Malema and the EFF's legal representatives failed to appear and the case was settled in AfriForum's favor and a further cost order issued against Malema and the EFF. On November 14, 2018, the other 2 cost orders against Malema and the EFF were issued in AfriForum's favor in 2 separate cases in the North Goa High Court. He said the first order applied to a case of contempt of court, brought by AfriForum against Malema and the EFF, after Malema and the EFF continued to encourage land grabs despite a standing interdict that AfriForum had obtained to prohibit them from inciting people to occupy land. AfriForum wants Malema's hate speech decision overturned. Julius Malema's hate speech drama is not over. AfriForum will ask the High Court to overturn an earlier decision that his statements were not hate speech. AfriForum will approach the South Goa High Court in a bid to overturn the finding of the Human Rights Commission, SARC, that statements made by EFF leader Julius Malema were not hate speech. This followed complaints that Malema, during a public speech, said, "We are not calling for the slaughtering of white people. At least not now." The SARC last month found that while what Malema said could be offensive for some white people, the utterances had to be seen against the history of the country. In its ruling, the SARC said, however, it is clear that white colonial settlers did occupy black land. This statement, made by Malema, is about how white people behaved historically. It is not about how they are behaving now. The SARC further said that Malema specifically said he was not calling for the killing or slaughtering of white people now. He is only calling for the occupation of their land. During a media briefing to explain their findings, the SARC remarked that the Constitutional Court was of the view that certain words and expressions will depend on whether it is uttered by a white or black person and against a white or black person. The Commission said this was an important factor to take into account when determining whether something amounted to hate speech or not. In papers filed at the High Court, AfriForum chief executive Kallie Kriel in this regard said what the SARC meant was that had a white person stated that they were not calling for the slaughter of black people, at least not for now, this would almost certainly have been found to constitute hate speech. He said there was a reasonable apprehension that the stance the Commission took regarding hate speech was not objective and was biased. The decision stands to be reviewed and corrected or set aside on that basis, he said. According to Kriel, this amounted to double standards and was in breach of the Constitution, which valued non-racialism and equality. Kriel also filed a complaint against Malema with the Commission in November 2016. At the time, Malema had made the comments at a rally in KwaZulu-Natal. He asked the SARC to investigate the statements, as AfriForum felt it was discriminatory and breached the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act. The SARC said it did assess the complaint by considering the context of the statement made by Malema. It found that Malema's statement, objectively viewed, was about the history of land dispossession of blacks by whites, including that whites slaughtered blacks. Further, it found Malema's statement was critical of whites historically and about how white people behaved historically, and that he was not calling for the slaughtering of white people now, only for the occupation of their land. The Commission concluded that factually, Malema was only calling for peaceful occupation and not for the slaughter of white people. In support of this, the Commission relied on a statement Malema made last year that not under my leadership will I call for the slaughter of white people, even though I cannot guarantee what will happen after me. The SARC must meanwhile still file its papers in the review application.